"You don't belong here." The words cut through the air like a knife, leaving Maya stunned as she stood in the first-class line. The gate agent's eyes narrowed, filled with suspicion and judgment. Stories like this remind us why change is vital. Don't just watch, be part of the movement. Hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss these powerful stories of justice and resilience. And trust me, you won't want to miss the shocking twist at the end of this story. It'll leave you speechless. Drop a comment with where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. Maya's heart raced, her palms growing sweaty as she gripped her ticket. The bustling airport faded into background noise, drowned out by the blood rushing in her ears. Onlookers began to stare, their curious gazes burning into her skin. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what came next. At that moment, Maya knew she had to stand her ground. The next few seconds would change everything, challenging assumptions and forcing everyone present to confront their own hidden biases. Maya Johnson approached the first-class gate with a confident stride. As she neared the counter, she noticed the subtle shift in the atmosphere. Eyes darted in her direction, filled with suspicion and judgment. Maya took a deep breath, steeling herself for what might come next. She presented her ticket to the gate agent, a polite smile on her face. The agent's eyes flicked from the ticket to Maya, then back again. A frown creased their brow as they examined the boarding pass with exaggerated scrutiny. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the agent said, their tone dripping with condescension, "but I think you may be in the wrong line. Economy boarding is over there." Maya felt a familiar tightness in her chest but kept her voice steady. "No, I'm in the correct line. This is my first-class ticket." The agent's eyebrows shot up, disbelief evident on their face. "Are you sure? Perhaps there's been some mistake." "There's no mistake," Maya explained patiently. "I have every right to be in this line with my first-class ticket." The agent's lips pressed into a thin line. "I'm going to need to call a supervisor to verify this." As they reached for the phone, Maya felt a surge of frustration. She was all too familiar with this dance, the constant need to prove herself worthy of spaces others took for granted. The supervisor arrived, his presence amplifying the tension. He listened to the agent's explanation with a frown, then turned to Maya. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside while we sort this out." Maya planted her feet firmly, refusing to be moved. "No," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I won't step aside. I have a valid first-class ticket, and I have every right to board with the other first-class passengers." The supervisor's face hardened. "If you refuse to comply, we'll have to call security." Maya's heart raced, but she stood her ground. She thought of all the times she had backed down, stayed quiet, and tried to avoid making waves. Not today. Today she would stand firm in the face of this injustice. As the confrontation reached its boiling point, time seemed to slow. Maya found her mind drifting back to earlier that morning, to the moment she had steeled herself for this very possibility. Maya's mind raced as she stood before the skeptical gate agent, the growing crowd of onlookers pressing in around her. She thought back to her morning preparation, the weight of her decision settling on her shoulders like a familiar burden. As a black woman and leading cardiovascular surgeon, Maya had faced countless instances of discrimination throughout her career. She'd been mistaken for a nurse, met with skeptical looks at medical symposiums, and constantly felt the need to prove herself in a field dominated by white men. That morning, as she packed her briefcase, Maya had paused over her credentials. The familiar conflict tugged at her, the desire to blend in versus the need to assert her hard-earned place in the world. A recent study revealing that black women held only 1.4% of executive positions in Fortune 500 companies flashed through her mind, fueling her determination. At that moment, Maya had made a powerful choice. She carefully placed her credentials in her bag, not as a shield, but as a reminder of her worth. She would not hide, would not make herself small. She would face whatever challenges came her way with dignity and truth. Now, as she faced the gate agent and the looming threat of security, Maya's resolve strengthened. The memory of her morning decision fortified her. She stood tall, ready to reveal her true identity and challenge the biases that threatened to undermine her success. Little did she know just how soon her courage would be put to the test. The crowd held its breath as Maya stood her ground. She had faced discrimination before, but never quite like this. As she opened her mouth to speak, the air crackled with tension. Security guards approached, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Maya's heart raced, but her face remained calm. She knew this was her moment to challenge the biases that threatened her hard-earned success. The onlookers shifted restlessly, a mix of support and disapproval rippling through the crowd. A middle-aged woman's voice cut through the air, trembling with anger. "This is ridiculous. Let her board already." Maya took a deep breath, her fingers brushing against the credentials in her bag. The weight of the moment pressed down on her, but she refused to yield. "Before you call security," Maya began, her voice steady and clear, "I think there's something you should know." The gate agent's eyebrows raised, uncertainty flickering across their face. The supervisor crossed his arms, impatience radiating from his stance. Maya slowly reached into her bag, tension building with each movement. The crowd leaned in, hanging on her every word. "My name is Dr. Maya Johnson," she continued, producing her hospital ID. "I'm the head of cardiovascular surgery at Memorial Hospital." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. The gate agent's face drained of color, their mouth opening and closing without sound. The supervisor's arms fell to his sides, shock evident in his wide eyes. "I performed over 500 successful heart surgeries," Maya pressed on. "I've spoken at medical conferences around the world, and yes, I fly first class." The silence that followed was deafening. Then voices erupted from the crowd. "That's disgusting," someone shouted. "You should be ashamed," another called out to the airline staff. The gate agent stumbled over their words, face flushed with embarrassment. I'm so sorry, Dr. Johnson. There's been a terrible misunderstanding." Maya held up her hand, silencing their stammered apologies. "This isn't about me," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the gate area. "It's about the countless others who face this kind of discrimination every day. We deserve better. We demand better." As security guards retreated and airline officials scrambled to make amends, Maya stood tall, her presence commanding respect. She had revealed her true identity, not just as a renowned surgeon, but as a woman who refused to be defined by others' prejudices. Maya's revelation sent shockwaves through the terminal. Passengers who moments ago had averted their eyes now stared openly, a mix of shame and awe etched on their faces. Maya addressed the stunned crowd, her voice steady and resolute. "This is about recognizing the dignity in every person, regardless of their appearance or background." The gate agent stammered through an apology, but Maya wasn't finished. She spoke of the countless times she'd faced similar prejudices, of the exhaustion that comes from constantly having to prove oneself worthy of respect. As Maya's words sank in, reactions varied dramatically. Some hung their heads, unable to meet her gaze. Others nodded vigorously, emboldened by her courage. A few approached to offer support, sharing their own experiences with discrimination. A young girl broke away from her parents and approached Maya. Her eyes were wide with admiration as she tugged on Maya's sleeve. "When I grow up," she announced proudly, "I want to be brave like you." Maya knelt down to the girl's level, her voice soft but filled with conviction. "You already are brave," she said. "Never let anyone make you feel less than who you are." In the days that followed, the incident gained national attention. The airline issued a formal apology and pledged to overhaul its staff training programs. They announced a commitment to implementing scenario-based training to help employees recognize and address biases more effectively. The impact of Maya's stand extended beyond a single airline. It sparked a nationwide conversation about racial bias in travel and other industries. Social media buzzed with stories from people who had faced similar discrimination, creating a groundswell of support for change. As the dust settled, Maya reflected on the ripple effects of that day at the airport. She had stood her ground, not just for herself, but for countless others who had been silenced by prejudice. In doing so, she ignited a spark of change that would continue to burn bright, challenging deeply ingrained biases and inspiring unexpected heroes in the ongoing fight for equality. Maya's stand at the airport gate sparked a wave of change that rippled through society. Social media lit up with similar stories of discrimination, amplifying the call for action. The airline industry, under intense scrutiny, responded swiftly. Major carriers implemented mandatory diversity training for staff and new reporting systems for passengers facing bias. The impact of Maya's courage extended far beyond air travel. Her story resonated across various sectors, igniting discussions about racial bias in healthcare, education, and corporate settings. It demonstrated how one person's refusal to accept injustice could catalyze widespread positive change. As time passed, Maya received an outpouring of messages from people moved by her actions. Many shared how her bravery had inspired them to confront discrimination in their own lives. Maya realized that by standing up for herself, she had become a symbol of hope for countless others facing similar struggles. Her single act of defiance had set in motion a powerful movement towards equality and accountability. Thank you for watching this heartfelt story. If it moved you, hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment of these daily stories that matter. Together, we can shine a light on justice, empathy, and the power of storytelling. Don't just watch, be part of the movement. Share where you're watching from in the comments, and we'll see you in the next story that inspires change.